effects of sounds that you've made with a software synthesizer in Reaper, you can go through this process. First, you'll make an instrument track by adding a synth. I'm going to use Absynth by Native Instruments, and it will load the instrument. Might take a minute. And I'm going to choose this sound. And once I've loaded the sound, I'm going to choose my input as MIDI, all MIDI inputs, all channels. Next, I'm going to test my sound. Sounds fine. And so what I'd like to do is pass it through an effect. Now I can create a second track as an effect return, basically, where I'm adding an effect to this sound. I'm going to use pitch delay by SoundHack and alter some of its settings, make the feedback a little higher, create pitch ratios that are interesting. And notice that I need to send the signal from one to the next. So I'm going to route, I'm going to click and hold and drag my routing, and my cursor turns into a plug. And I'm going to go ahead and drag it onto the second track. And that means that I'm sending signal from this one to this one. So now when I hit play here, I'm controlling this synthesizer in here, which is Absynth Afternoon Daydream patch, and this is my delay return. So I have a track devoted to just this effect. So if I wanted to create more tracks with more sounds on them and I wanted to send them to this track, I could by simply clicking the route icon, dragging it to this track. You'll notice that there's a colored stripe for a send and a colored stripe for a return. Now, if I'm using this sound, I can record an event as a MIDI event in the timeline. If I hit record, okay, so I have a software instrument loaded into this track. I made a MIDI note here. Now, let's say I want to make a WAV file of this MIDI region. I go up to track, and we're going to basically print this to a WAV file in a new track. That's called rendering in this program. So we're going to go to render, and we're going to render tracks to stereo stem tracks. And what it'll do is it'll also mute the originals. So this function in the track menu takes the sounds that are triggered in this original track and makes a WAV file out of it. You can see the wave shape here, right? So what that does is it frees up resources for my computer to not load and use a software instrument, but rather I can just deal with WAV files. What's also nice about WAV files is that I can reverse them, I can stretch them and change them because they are pliable wave shapes, not necessarily just MIDI regions. So if I solo this, right? So it's also sending to this here, and if I wanted to remove that send, I would go here to my sends and returns and delete that. So that's how we're doing that. If we wanted to make a new, also a WAV file of the effects return, I can do a similar effect process here. I can similarly go to this track, go to my track menu, go to render freeze tracks, render tracks to stereo stem tracks, and now I've got a delay return wave shape and a synthesizer wave shape that is generated from my original source. So if I solo this one, it's just going to be the delay line. And I'm not sure if that's audible, but it's a really interesting byproduct of my original sound. So I can record just the effects, which is kind of great. So that's how we are printing effects in Reaper. We can, again, load a sound, create a MIDI event, and then from the track menu, we render freeze tracks and then render tracks to stereo stem tracks. And that creates a wave shape for us. I routed that to a reverb return or a delay return here, and then I can print this effect as well. So now I've got autonomy basically between these two wave shapes. I can manipulate them however I want to because they're wave files.